Nike thought they had locked in a promising rookie. What they got was a global phenomenon. Within 72 hours of Shedeur Sanders' logo drop, the company's systems strained under demand, and industry rivals scrambled to understand what just happened. This wasn't about celebrity. It was about connection. Gen Z, international buyers, and even fashion circles latched onto the SS crown like it was the next Jordan symbol. For Nike, that meant reconsidering the value they'd assigned Sanders. For the rest of the industry, it meant rewriting the playbook on athlete branding, fast. What Sanders pulled off isn't hype, it's a proof of concept. His approach shows that a rookie, with the right mix of performance and personal narrative, can generate cultural gravity that no brand can manufacture alone. It's not just about playing the game anymore. It's about owning your story and letting the world buy into it. 2 minutes was all it took for Shedeur Sanders' Nike logo drop to crash the site. The SS Crown logo wasn't just a branding move, it was a cultural shockwave. Within 72 hours, inventory was wiped out, restocks vanished just as fast, and Nike's back-end systems were pushed past their limits.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The numbers? Record-breaking. The impact? Industry-defining. Shedeur didn't just sell apparel. He moved the needle of what a rookie endorsement could look like. The Nike deal, valued at a staggering $92 million, blindsided even seasoned insiders. It wasn't supposed to be this big. Rookie contracts like this aren't typically handed out, especially not ones that become this culturally relevant, this fast. But Shedeur wasn't just another rookie. He'd built a platform, a persona, and now a symbol, the SS crown, that tapped into something deeper than team loyalty or stat sheets. This was generational branding, and Nike found itself scrambling to keep up with the demand they never saw coming. Nike's original deal with Sanders was conservative. Now it looks outdated. Internally, the brand is reportedly renegotiating terms to reflect the meteoric rise of Sanders' market value. What started as a standard rookie endorsement has turned into a strategic liability if they can't secure his long-term loyalty. The urgency isn't about keeping Sanders happy. It's about surviving the aftershock of underestimating him. Meanwhile, competitors like Adidas and Puma are watching the chaos from the sidelines with equal parts panic and opportunity. Their execs are pushing for younger signings, faster launches, and more lifestyle-forward campaigns. They're no longer just looking for athletes. They're hunting for cultural catalysts. Sanders' success showed that you don't need to wait 5 seasons and a Super Bowl ring to spark movement. All you need is cultural fluency, a strong identity, and authenticity that doesn't feel. The SS crown wasn't just slapped on hoodies and sneakers. It was a deliberate statement, a hybrid of personal legacy and forward-looking identity. The logo drew immediate comparisons to icons like the Jordan Jumpman. But this wasn't about imitation. The SS logo was generational pride turned into fashion, a symbol that Gen Z connected to emotionally, even those who couldn't name the college Sanders played for last season. It wasn't just the logo's design, it was the meaning behind it. For a generation skeptical of marketing, Sanders' approach landed because it didn't feel like a campaign. It felt like a flex rooted in authenticity. His audience didn't have to be sold. He had already built the trust. The logo drop just gave them something to wear while showing it. What pushed the momentum even further was Shedeur's on-field performance. The branding wasn't floating on hype. It was anchored in real stats, real composure, and decision-making that earned respect, not just from fans, but from analysts who had previously dismissed him as more persona than player. That perception didn't last long. Game after game, Sanders delivered. The branding worked because the talent backed it up. There was no separation between the athlete and the icon. The same calm under-pressure scene in his post-game interviews was mirrored in his branding rollouts. There were no missteps, no awkward marketing attempts, no cringe moments that made the audience second-guess the hype. Everything about Sanders' image was controlled, but never fake. And while the numbers were stunning, the optics mattered just as much. Photos of fans wearing SS merch flooded social media, within hours. Not just athletes, not just dudes. Women, international buyers, and even non-sports fans were in the mix. This was a niche appeal, it was fashion. It was lifestyle. Demand from Europe and Asia exploded overnight, forcing Nike's global team to shift its regional strategies in real time. Sanders was suddenly in demand in markets where American football barely registers. That kind of reach doesn't happen through press releases. It comes from something bigger. A brand identity that resonates beyond the field, beyond the sport. Shedeur's rise flipped the endorsement playbook on its head. Traditionally, rookies earned the right to signature deals after proving themselves over time. Not anymore. His path showed that when cultural identity is as strong as athletic performance, the timeline accelerates. And everyone in the industry had to pay attention. Brands are rethinking what it means to sign early. They're learning that waiting could mean losing the moment. Sanders seized it. He didn't ask for the crown. He branded it, packaged it, and sold it. The speed at which it took off proved that the landscape has changed. Consumers want connection, not just performance. And Shedeur gave them both. Behind the scenes, the work never stopped. Sanders wasn't coasting on the momentum. He was feeding it. Videos from practice, BTS content of him prepping, refining plays, training. Everything he released reinforced the same message. I'm here to work. That consistency between what he said, what he wore, and how he played made the brand bulletproof. The NFL has never seen a rookie balance cultural influence and athletic discipline this precisely. There's usually a gap, a lag between fame and ability. But not here. Sanders' preparation matched his persona. That's why fans believed it. And that's why the brand stuck. When Shedeur spoke post-game, it wasn't with the over-polished lines you expect for media training. His tone was confident, but real. He acknowledged the hype, but didn't chase it. That restraint only amplified his credibility. People trust athletes who aren't trying too hard. He didn't need to scream about the logo. It spoke for itself. Even NFL veterans noticed. Analysts started shifting their tone, from skeptical to curious to impressed. What they once saw as marketing fluff now looked like strategic genius. Not from a team of handlers, but from Sanders himself, who clearly understood the balance between persona and performance better than most. There's a reason Nike's internal structure had to adapt. Their model didn't account for this level of market upheaval from a rookie. Fulfillment teams were buried. Warehouses couldn't keep pace. Product leads were pulled into emergency meetings. Sanders didn't just launch a brand. He exposed a weakness in their systems. The domino effect reached every corner of the endorsement space. Retailers scrambled to secure shelf space. Resellers flipped merch at 5 times retail. Fans begged for restocks. And through it all, Sanders kept the pressure on, not through words, but through presence. He made his brand feel inevitable, like it had always been. Competitors aren't watching from a distance anymore. Adidas and Puma are already tweaking their endorsement structures. They're chasing the next Shedeur, but they're realizing it's not just about finding a talented player. It's about finding someone with a cultural language to match the moment. Sanders didn't luck into this. He built it. This shift is bigger than one contract. It's a redefinition of how athlete value is calculated. Performance still matters. But so does relevance. So does timing. So does identity. And Sanders checked every box. He showed that athlete branding isn't a side hustle anymore. It's the main event. In the days following the drop, Nike's PR team scrambled to regain control of the narrative. What was initially pitched as a standard rollout for a promising rookie had become the most talked about endorsement event of the year. Nike was forced to address their own underestimation, publicly and internally. The real panic wasn't over lost inventory. It was about the realization that they'd signed Sanders based on outdated metrics. They'd calculated brand power like it was 2015. They didn't account for what it means when a player brings both generational credibility and real-time market fluency. By the time executives were doing damage control at press conferences, it was obvious. Sanders was driving the culture, and Nike was late to its own party. What made the shockwave harder to contain was the fact that Sanders kept performing on the field. There were no weak games to distract from a branding story, only sharp reads, confident throws, and clutch plays. Every Sunday, Sanders added credibility to his name. Highlights from his match compilations didn't just circulate in sports media. They went viral in fashion accounts, music feeds, and fan edits from international audiences. He wasn't just a quarterback anymore. He was an aesthetic, a vibe, someone whose presence translated in still frames and reels just as powerfully as it did in box scores. It was a marketing dream, but more importantly, it was a cultural moment. And every major sports brand knew it. In post-game interviews, Sanders rarely even mentioned the brand directly. He didn't have to. The crown was on his hoodie, or his sleeve, or sitting cleanly on a cap. It was there, but it wasn't loud. That restraint gave it strength. In a media ecosystem where most rookie endorsements beg for attention, Sanders let his performance do the talking, and his logo do the whispering. It worked. Fans believed him because he never looked like he was selling something, even when he was. That's what made the movement feel organic. The SS logo didn't feel like it was pushed into the spotlight. It felt like it just belonged there. That's a level of control most brands only dream about. Analysts started calling it the Shedeur effect. It wasn't just about apparel sales anymore. It was about reshaping how rookies are evaluated. Sanders forced media to look at cultural value, not just combined stats. He was the bridge between highlight reels and hashtag relevancy. And it showed in every coverage shift. Commentators who used to treat off-field branding as a distraction now called it essential. They understood that in 2026, image isn't separate from impact. For younger fans, it's the whole package. The logo, the content, the tone, the attitude. That's part of the story now. Sanders didn't just read the room. He changed the lighting. One of the clearest signs of the brand's influence? The matchday crowd. Photos from recent games showed fans wearing SS gear more than actual team merchandise. That kind of crossover isn't just rare, it's disruptive. NFL franchises noticed. Stadium vendors noticed. Corporate sponsors definitely noticed. When people are showing up to games to represent a player brand instead of a team, the hierarchy shifts. It challenges how fandom works. Sanders tapped into an audience that wants to belong to a movement, not just a roster. The SS logo gave them that. And the NFL, for all its traditions, had to take. During one interview, Sanders was asked how he managed to balance the brand hype with game prep. His response was sharp. The work's not separate from the brand. It is the brand. That line got clipped and replayed everywhere. Because it was true. And it perfectly captured the mindset shift that's rewriting endorsement culture. Athletes don't have to compartmentalize anymore. With Sanders, the film room, the training sessions, the logo strategy, it's all one system. He's not choosing between performance and presence. He's making them inseparable. That mindset is what elevates him from sponsored athlete to brand architect. Videos of Sanders training in SS gear turned into mini campaigns all by themselves. No graphics, no voiceovers, just clean clips of high-level reps, worn in gloves, and quiet focus. That content didn't just appeal to football fans. It connected with anyone who values precision and control. Those practice sessions became as powerful as commercials. People weren't just buying into the logo. They were buying into the process. Sanders gave them access to the work behind the hype. And that transparency made his influence harder to dismiss. You could argue with the attention. You couldn't argue with the output. The preseason feels like a lifetime ago now, but it's where this whole wave started. Sanders had already laid the groundwork with calculated preseason exposure. The logo was teased before it dropped. The interviews were clipped just enough to spark conversation. It wasn't overproduced, but it was planned. That launch timing mattered. By the time the regular season hit, the hype machine was running on its own. Sanders didn't have to force moments. They happened organically because he'd set the tone early. And once the merch dropped, the response confirmed what his team already knew. The audience was ready. They just needed something to rally around. Even Nike's competitors admit they were caught flat-footed. Adidas held emergency branding meetings. Puma accelerated internal scouting timelines. The fear wasn't just losing Sanders, it was falling behind the new athlete model he represented. The kind that doesn't wait to be validated. The kind that brings his own gravity. This wasn't NIL 2.0. This was something bigger. Sanders proved that a player can walk into a league with a fully formed identity that consumers already believe in. That kind of momentum is almost impossible to replicate from scratch. And it's exactly why every brand is now rethinking its rookie playbook. And what happens next isn't about Sanders adapting to the league. It's about the league adapting to Sanders. That might sound dramatic, but the data backs it up. The highest-grossing rookie endorsement in years didn't come from a first-round pick. It came from someone who knew how to market meaning, not just merchandise. Fans didn't buy into the SS crown because it was trendy. They bought in because it meant something. It represented work ethic, confidence, legacy, and control. It felt earned. And in a market flooded with forced brand attempts, Sanders' authenticity stood out like a clean route through traffic. There's been a quiet shift happening in the NFL. You don't need decades of legacy or a franchise built around you to lead culture anymore. You just need influence. And Shedeur Sanders has it, on the field, off the field, and in every screen capture that gets reposted millions of times. The league's highlight reels now double as branding showcases. Every time Sanders hits the field, it's not just about yards gained. It's about impressions made. Broadcasters show the stats. The internet shows the fits, the logo placements, and the fans in the stands rocking SS gear. This is no longer just a game. It's a visual, and Sanders knows it. That's why when he sits down for interviews, he's not fumbling through sound bites. He's deliberate, confident, measured. He doesn't oversell. He just speaks like someone who already understands he's bigger than the moment. And that calmness only fuels the perception of control. You can hear it in the way he frames success, not as an accident or stroke of timing, but as something built. There's never a sense that this all happened to him. He owns it. The brand didn't grow because the world gave him a chance. It grew because he gave people a reason to care. That's a key difference. Scroll through the photo reels from recent games and it's obvious. Shedeur isn't just being documented. He's curating. Every visual feels intentional. From tunnel walks to sideline shots, the crown is always visible but never forced. Fans are replicating his looks, mimicking the styling, the energy. Not just kids either. Grown professionals are wearing the SS logo to events like its streetwear couture. This isn't merch anymore. It's identity. It's the kind of branding no ad campaign can manufacture because it's community-driven. People want to feel like they're part of the rise. And Sanders' team made sure they could be, by giving them a symbol to wear as it happened. The fact that this entire shift is being led by a rookie should scare every traditionalist in the building. Because what Sanders represents isn't just innovation, it's disruption. He's bypassing the usual channels, rewriting the arc from prospect to icon with a blueprint that other young athletes are now racing to emulate. This isn't an influencer with a lucky break. This is a high-performing quarterback who also happens to understand modern marketing better than most execs. He doesn't just play the game. He speaks the language of an audience that's been ignored by legacy sports branding for too long. And when he talks post-game, there's none of the usual self-censorship that dilutes authenticity. He's professional, sure, but not polished to the point of being unrecognizable. The tone is personal. The attitude is locked in. You get the sense that this is who he is, whether cameras are rolling or not. That's why people keep listening. He's not selling them a version of himself that fits the media narrative. He's just being consistent. And when that consistency lines up with performance, the result is trust. And in this era of branding, trust is currency. Nike is now in a reactive position. Their press conferences used to set the agenda. Now, they're responding to it. They didn't anticipate the scale. They didn't expect the crossover. They didn't build a fulfillment model to handle Sanders-level chaos. And now they're revising contracts in real time, trying to avoid another misfire. Internally, Sanders' deal is being treated like a benchmark, one they weren't ready for. It's forcing departments to collaborate faster, approve faster, and launch faster. And that tension between corporate pace and cultural speed? Sanders exposed it, without even saying a word. Even his training sessions have taken on a second life. It's not just about prep, it's content. When fans see Sanders on the practice field, they're not just watching footwork. They're watching precision, discipline, and attention to detail that matches the brand tone. Everything is aligned. The SS logo isn't flashy. It's clean, confident, minimal. And that's exactly how he plays. No wasted motion. No gimmicks. Just results. The branding didn't invent the narrative. It reinforced what was already visible every time he stepped onto the field. That synchronicity is what sets him apart. Looking back at the preseason, every piece fits. The pacing, the drops, the messaging. It was all part of a larger arc. His post-game quotes weren't just throwaways. They were breadcrumbs. And as the season unfolded, those early moments gained weight. It was clear none of this was spontaneous. It was orchestrated. And yet, it never felt forced. That's the magic trick. He moved with purpose, not pressure. It wasn't about hype cycles or viral moments. It was about momentum. And every preseason interview now plays like a prologue to a bigger story. One that's still... By the time other rookies were figuring out how to juggle media obligations and playbooks, Sanders had already mastered the rhythm. He doesn't need time to grow into the spotlight. He came equipped. And the endorsement world is adjusting to the idea that rookies might arrive with their own gravitational pull now. This is the new normal. Brands aren't just signing potential. They're signing platforms. Sanders showed that when the foundation is authentic, you don't need 5 years of proof. You just need vision and follow through, which, to be clear, he has in spades. And that's what this entire story comes down to: follow through. It's easy to start a brand. It's hard to build one that endures. Shedeur Sanders has already shown he can lead on the field. Now he's proving he can lead in the marketplace too. Not as a trend, but as a case study. He didn't just raise the bar, he moved it. For rookies, for branding departments, for sports marketing at large. And while the industry plays catch-up, he's already 2 steps ahead, with fans in every time zone wearing the proof. If you're watching this unfold and still not convinced, take a look around. This isn't just hype. It's history in the making. And if you're here for it, tap that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed. Because if this is where Shedeur's brand begins, the rest of the ride's going to be even wilder.